Some say that different places in the world are better to live in than others. Maybe the difference is the amount of people or the amount of opportunity. But the hope of Christ isn't just for one people or one city over another. I say, what is a city? But it's people. What adds value to a city is when those gifts, passions, and stories are shared in that place.
I grew up in a single household. My father died when I was 13 months old. I had zero guidance in my life. Kind of led me on the path to do whatever I wanted. 17 times I ended up in JDC. I had a child at a very young age. I was 16 years old when my first son was born. I was my own person, my own man at that point. I left my mom's house when I was 17 years old. Moved out on my own and never looked back.
Until about 7th grade, I was actually a pretty good kid. Started smoking a lot of pot, cheerleading team. Came a point where I got kicked off the cheerleading team, couldn't play sports because I was always showing up high. Going to parties, running away from home, not listening, just a rebel, you know. By the time I was 16, I dropped out of school, had an older boyfriend, and got pregnant. And I lost all of my friends for about a year. Having a kid was enough to straighten me out because she was the most beautiful thing in the world. I got pregnant again and got an abortion. Then after that, we moved to Florida, and I thought it was going to be a new life for us. But then I met baby daddy number 2. I thought I was so in love with him. We moved in together like a month later, but it was a terrible neighborhood. Long story short, I started smoking a lot of crack. The only way I was able to get out of that one is I got pregnant with my second daughter. We moved away to North Carolina. I was always moving away from the problem when the problem lied inside myself. And we ended up moving back to Florida. I ended up getting Baker acted, which is pretty much a psych ward. And in that time, they took my kids. DCF took my kids and gave them to my dad. Along with everything else, my house, everything we had. So instead of getting right, I just went off the deep end.
I was saved when I was 4 years old because I grew up in a Christian home and all the rest of my family was Christians, and was homeschooled most of the time until I decided that maybe I wanted to go to high school. I decided to go there because I really wanted to be a light and just saw how Jesus could be spread in the high school there. But I wasn't an effective light because I had a lack of confidence, so I was just caught worrying more about my own popularity and protecting my own reputation than I was about effectively spreading the love of Christ in my high school. What I realized what I was really missing was my identity in Christ. Because I was so busy searching for something to fill that need for worth and identity in my own life that I was chasing popularity instead of the love of God. I didn't even know I was searching for love, but I was just looking for anything that would make me feel valuable.
What do you choose? Choices are powerful. We all have the ability to change our circumstances, no matter what life has dealt us. Before us is set life and death. It's our decision to choose. And through Christ, what can separate us from the love of the Father?
The fact that I now have a child, especially at a young age, to say, look, I need to make some life changes here. It all boiled down to choices that I had to make. Do I follow these relationships that I have with people that are not doing what I would consider the right thing, whether it be partying, drinking, drugs? Or do I say, I'm going to step up and be the man that God's called me to be? I initially heard him tell me, Nathan, I will provide everything that you need. got a wife, I started a family, I finally found my calling, and that was to become a barber. And now it's continuing on and on. I'm getting ready to open a new shop. I'm extremely happy now. The most important thing to me right now is my family and my relationship with God. No matter what happened in my life, one thing remained: God's love.
I didn't know how to get my kids back. I didn't know how to fix all these problems. I made such a mess out of my life. And I just cried and I prayed that God would save me from myself, because at that time I knew that I was my own worst enemy. And I knew that there was somebody inside of me just dying to get out. You know, after we came to Marion, I moved on to heroin. And that's when I OD'd. While I was doing 8 months in jail, I found out my mom had brain cancer. So she got me a plane ticket, and I missed it, purposely. But the thing about my mom is she never stopped having faith in me, no matter what. She always was the one who reminded me of the person that I could be. And ever since then, God's just awakened me. You know, He's starting to restore all my relationships. I talk to my kids all the time. No matter what happens in my life, one thing remains: God's love.
When we love God, then we begin to see the immense love He has for the people around us, and we begin to love them. So love the people around you. Be Christ at your high school, and start now. There isn't a single person at your school who isn't desperately in need of love. So we can't overlook anybody. Get outside of your box. There are people who need your love now.
No matter what happens in life, one thing remains: God's love.